you're curious about crypto, but you don't know where to start. Introducing What the Crypto, a podcast by Africa's leading cryptocurrency platform, Luno. We simplify cryptocurrency, taking you from zero to crypto.
Investing in cryptocurrency is not regulated in South Africa and may result in the loss of capital as the value can fluctuate. Views and opinions shared on this podcast are that of the guests and not of Luno. Any material or information on this podcast does not constitute as financial advice.
Crypto 101. It's not a lecture, it's a conversation.
Thank you for pressing play on What the Crypto, a podcast by Luno, Africa's leading cryptocurrency platform. My name is DJ at Large. So the first time I heard about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, it was through a scammer, right? A swindler on Facebook. And luckily for me, I was quite cautious, so I didn't fall for the trap. Instead, I did a little bit of my own research because my belief is anything that requires your money requires your research. Unfortunately, many people fall victim to scams, and their first experience of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin and even Luno ends up being a negative one. And make no mistake, cryptocurrency is not a scam. Luno is not a scam. But some very clever and shady individuals use the tool to scam people. So I want you to be cautious as our listeners of the podcast. So that's what today's episode is all about. How do you become scam proof? How do you avoid some of these traps? So I've invited Eva Crouwel, who is part of the Luno family. She's the head of financial crime and forensics. Eva, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here today.
So we're recording remotely. Where are you currently based?
I am based in our beautiful mother city in Cape Town.
Before we help some of our listeners to avoid scams and to become scam proof, I've got a random crypto question for you, Eva. If you could have a sneak peek into somebody else's crypto wallet, who would it be and why?
Wow, that's such a cool question. So I'd actually love to have a sneak peek into Elon Musk's wallet, just to see what's going on, right? He's such an icon in the world, and when it comes to crypto, and when it comes to innovation, and obviously he's really moved the markets in crypto up and down over the last couple of months and years. And on top of that, he is a South African, so what would be cooler to having a look into his wallet?
Oh man, absolutely agree. I'd love to see what he's invested in. Despite repeated warnings, various red flags, crypto-related scams continue to be successful in trapping various types of South Africans. And I'm very curious even to know, why are these scams so sexy and so appealing to consumers? What is it about these scams?
Yeah, so good question. So, Tippo, I always think of these things as like a perfect storm, like the movie. But also a perfect storm means a situation where all sorts of attributes come together to form a perfect feeding ground. And I think that's definitely something that we're seeing here. There's a couple of things happening in our country and in people's lives that we have to recognize, right? Firstly, we need to acknowledge that as a country, we still have a very long way to go to educate our people on finances and on investments and how to safely invest. And people like yourself with this podcast and our guys at the Help Center at Luno, we really try our best to educate people about how you safely invest and how to safely store your money and how to keep yourself safe in various investments and in your financial planning. But the reality is that we actually have a long way to go. Secondly, what you also can't deny is that as it stands, the lives of many, if not the majority of South Africans, has become really, really hard in the last few years. This pandemic has brought economic hardship on people that were already struggling in our country, and people have lost their jobs, they've lost their companies, loved ones, and everybody is really struggling and finding and looking for things for economic relief to make it a little bit less hard. And then you introduce something like crypto, which is a new technology, and it's really easy then to exploit the lack of knowledge of this technology and the low level of investment knowledge, and you combine that with the fact that people really desperately want to improve their financial circumstances, and there you have it, like this perfect storm for criminals to come in and to offer unrealistic investment returns or quick cash, and people feel that this is their shot, right, at getting out and getting money and making a better future for themselves.
You know, Eva, there's this assumption that scams are unique to South Africa. Are crypto-related scams as prevalent in other parts of the world? Because, of course, Luno is a global organization. Are you guys hearing crypto scams from around the world?
Oh, for sure. Like, this is not a Mzansi problem. This is a world problem. When we look at the data, and there is quite some nice reports out there from companies like Chainalysis that actually monitor transactions in cryptocurrency. And when you look at that data, you can see that scams actually account for the majority of criminal activity in crypto at the moment. But what you also see is that they occur all over the world. Interestingly, what you do see is that in different areas of the world, we see different types of scams that occur. In the South African context, our people are very sensitive to get rich quick scams that pretend to be stokvels or offer high return volumes, etc. And these scams often are high in volume, meaning that there's lots of people investing in them, but they're low in value, meaning that people put low amounts towards those scams. In European countries, on the other hand, we see a lot of romance scams, and we also see large investment scams where people invest in lower volumes, so less investments into a specific scam, but they do it in much more value. So the euro amounts that they invest is much higher. Nowhere in the world are you safe from scammers. And I think if you get a chance to read that Chainalysis report, it is actually really cool, and it gives you a lot of insights into what's going on in this area.
You know, there's something you said earlier on that I just want to rewind back to, and it's around why scammers are using crypto as the face of their scams. Is it solely based on the fact that it's such a new technology, or is there something a little bit deeper in terms of the choice to use crypto in particular?
That's an interesting question. So after being in this fraud game and this forensic game for a while, and I'm aware that I'm actually totally revealing my age here to the listeners, but one thing that you come to realize is that criminals are actually super boring. And I'm sorry to all criminals listening today. They are not really good at change, and they really like things to go the same way over and over and over again. So the other thing that you will learn is that criminals also, they're like water. They choose the path of least resistance, and they choose the easiest way to execute their plans. So what that means is that scammers absolutely see crypto as an opportunity to exploit the lack of knowledge and the trust of the public in order to use it as a face for their scams. In the 90s, we saw scams in complex investment vehicles and big investment schemes that collapsed. We saw the rise of the pyramid scheme, and the late 90s it was the internet investment bubble, this Y2K scams that were happening all over, and the internet investments that were rife. And now fast forward to the 2000s, we see the rise of the stokvel and the pyramid scams. I think everybody probably remembers those pictures in the newspapers, right? Where you saw like rows and rows of angry people queuing around the corner of a net bank when one of these scams collapsed, because they wanted to get their money back. And fast forward to the 2020s, where we see that typology move into the crypto space. I always say, it's the same crime, but just a different conduit. It's the same typology, and very often actually the same actors. It's just using a different technology.
It's so interesting to get information on the psyche of these scammers. And what's so interesting, even when I was thinking about this episode, is that the scammers, and I think it's the irony, the scammers have educated themselves on crypto. Because if they come across somebody that knows a little bit more, they need to be able to convince them, which tells you the importance of just educating yourself. So educating yourself about crypto, but also educating yourself around what some of the scammers are actually doing. Do you guys at Luno have resources where we could sort of read what some of the current scams are, or anything like that in terms of the methodology around how the scams are done?
We have a help center location on our website, and it's also accessible through the app, where we actually explain how to detect the scam, what different scams are, and what you can do to keep safe. There's a lot of educational content out there. And funny enough, it's also important for people to realize that for scammers, scamming people out of their money is their daytime job. Right? That's what they make their living out of. So they work. They have a 9 to 5, making sure that they are educated on the technology, that they also read our help center articles, unfortunately, and that they keep abreast of what's going on in the crypto space. But definitely, if you're new into crypto and you want to get your feet wet, then your first protocol is doing your research and going to that help center article and reading up about the different types of scams and how to spot them.
Yeah, so earlier on, you touched on, the sophisticated, the intricate romance scams around crypto to these swindlers as well. What would you say are some of the red flags to spot a scam? So
there's a large number of red flags, and they're kind of slightly different between types of scams. So for the interest of today, I want to focus on the two main ones that we've been talking about, which is the traditional get-rich-quick scam and the romance scam. So let's start with this get-rich-quick scam, right? And there's a few red flags that you can look out to. So the most important one here, the big telltale, is the offered return on investment. If you put in 1,000 Rand and they offer you 10,000 Rand in return in 14 days, we're talking a return on investment of an astronomical percentage in as short as 14 days. Now let's go back to the traditional world. You compare that to a bank, where maybe, and I mean just maybe, if you're really good mates with your relationship manager, you might get 8% if you put away a large sum, say 25, 50,000 or even 100,000 Rand. And it takes you months to get to that 8%. So if somebody offers you 10,000 Rand return in 14 days, those returns are just absolutely unrealistic. And to be very honest, slightly ridiculous. Another important one is when somebody tells you that they're an advisor or a broker. So you need to remember that in South Africa, these people actually need to be registered, right? You can't just say that you're an advisor, financial advisor. And it's actually very highly unlikely that these people who claim to be advisors actually are advisors and registered advisors, unless they have a registration number. So that's something that you can check. And then lastly, what we're seeing nowadays is we see a lot of scammers claiming to work for Luno, right? And they contact people on social media or on Telegram groups, and they say that they are working for the exchange and they want to help. This is a serious red flag, and the reason for that is that, especially for speaking for Luno, we don't employ these people, right? We don't have advisors, we don't have brokers working for us. So that's a straight out fake. Okay, so you want to look at 3 things. Exchanges typically don't employ advisors to reach out to you. Advisors needs to be registered, so check if they have a registration number. And most importantly, if a return looks too good to be true, it probably is, right? It's volatile, but not so volatile.
That makes sense.
Now let's move on to romance scams.
Yeah.
And this is a tricky one, and I always feel super bad because, romance scams means that you're taking 2 pieces of hope away from a person. One is financial hope, because you're robbing them of money. But the most important one is you're taking emotional hope from them by pretending to love them and actually scamming them. So this is definitely one of my pet peeves. So a couple of red flags here is typically this person comes out of the blue, right? You don't interact with them, or you don't meet them in a social setting. They come out of the blue and they suddenly are there. And then what happens is that very early in the relationship, they start telling you about problems that they have, either in their own lives or in their business or with relatives or family, and they ask you for money. And then they continue to ask you for money. And what you can also see in these cases is that they're very evasive in their answers to you when you start questioning about the relationship that they have with this relative, with this friend, with their business, and you want to kind of start to get to know a little bit more about them. And they tend to really focus on making you feel really good about yourself. very much that deflecting of their own personal life towards making you feel loved and secure and admired and all of that.
And almost like playing on your emotions as well.
100%. These people are 100% out to play on your emotions. Yes.
Sheesh, that's so scary, so scary. I'm sort of wondering, as you were speaking, are there any scam-related stories or cases that you dealt with that stand out?
There's the one where we dealt with a case where customers were actually socially engineered investing into a large scam. And this was a lot of money. And this scam was targeting retired high net worth individuals. And these people invested their retirement savings into this scam. And the way that this was done was it was completely orchestrated by so-called advisors. And these advisors took weeks and in some cases months to build an advisor relationship with these people and ultimately moving them into sharing hundreds of thousands of euros in this case with these scammers as so-called investments. And obviously this money now is lost, which is horrible. We also have a success story where in a South African context, there was a scammer who tried a similar story. Unfortunately, one or two of these people were our customers and they reached out to us and they informed us of what was going on and we were able to actually lock the accounts of this individual and save quite a lot of money and return that to the victims, which is brilliant. You know, that's why we're here, is to stop this and make sure that people get their money back insofar possible. And another one that really stuck with me was, like I said, was a romance scam of an elderly South African man whose girlfriend, so-called girlfriend, was overseas, and she was busy buying a house for them overseas and building a nail salon, and this poor man was paying for all of that, and ultimately had to realize that she was not in love with him and she had no intention of marrying him or buying a house with him, but she was scamming him out of his money. And this man was really heartbroken. And those cases, they get to you, right? We're all humans. So that one really stuck.
Yeah, some very interesting stories. And I think it's very interesting that Luno has played a role in helping people and trying to stop some of these scams. Generally, what role does Luno play in terms of trying to keep consumers up to date and trying to combat these scams?
First and foremost, we have a team of dedicated investigators that do nothing else but deal with customer protection and scams. And what they do is they're always on the lookout for new scams. They analyze customers that report incidents to us. They try and help customers with following where the money trail is going to, and if there are funds that are recoverable. They assist law enforcement as well, the police, with trying to find where money is going that was scammed. So these guys are absolute heroes. I mean, they're doing an amazing job. In addition to that, we at Luno spend a lot of time educating. So we create a lot of educational content, like I said before, that help center article that's there, that people can go and read, and we update that. And in addition to that, we periodically send out specific emails warning people around scams and specific typologies that we see emerging in specific areas of our customer base, to warn people about the fact that, you know what, scams are there, this is what they look like, and this is how you can keep yourself safe. So we try and do as much as we can, obviously, to keep our customers and their funds safe.
And obviously the big responsibilities on the customers themselves, protecting their wallets. Do you have some few tips for our listeners in terms of, how do they protect their wallets? How do they avoid some of these scams?
Because we're in South Africa, everybody knows the big five, right? So how you can keep your account safe, there's also a big five.
Ooh, okay.
So that makes it easy to remember, right? The first one is the one that our grannies always used to tell us, and that is, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes.
Okay, so what applies when you are 5 or 6 years old still applies when you're 36 years old. If you look at something and somebody offers you something and you're just thinking, this actually sounds too good to be true, be aware that it probably is. Crypto is volatile, but it's not that volatile that you would get thousands of percents of returns on your investment, right? Just bear that in mind. Then the second important thing is to your earlier point, and I loved what you said. If something is worth your money, it's worth your research. So research the technology and the person that you want to invest with. Do they have a website? Are they registered as a financial advisor? How long have they been around? What do other people say about them? Do they have a public profile? Right? Hello Peter, those types of things. These things matter. Look at where you want to invest. Then the third one is, if you do store your money, do it on a reputable exchange. Right? Luno being one of them, but there are other ones out there. Because what happens is that bigger exchanges and reputable exchanges, they make a very big investment in making sure that your money is as safe as possible, right? They have good security, they have educational content, they have a customer center that you can contact if something's wrong. And it's important that your money is in a safe spot. So always look out for reputable exchange. And then the weakest link, so number 4 is that realize that the weakest link in this whole chain is the human factor. It's very rare to actually see like things like hacking and stuff occurring in the crypto. It happens, but it's more than often than not, it's actually something else going on. And we see a lot of people that are scammed out of surrendering their login details to their account, for example, and then lose their money. So, which brings me to number 5, the last of the big 5, is you treat your crypto wallet like you would your bank account, right? So keep your login details safe, keep your password safe. Don't give anybody else access to your account. You wouldn't give anybody your standard bank account and say, have a nice day, go have fun, right? So why would you do that with your crypto wallet? You shouldn't. It's your wallet, it's your money. It's good to keep that safe. So that's the big 5 of safety tips here.
I love that big 5 because it's so easy to remember and it's such important tips. And as you were speaking, I realized they could be a big 6, because when I hear a lot of the crypto stories, people tend to ignore their gut feeling, that feeling that something isn't right in the conversation, in the approach. Could we perhaps maybe add it and make it a big 6?
I love that idea. Let's make it a big 6.
Oh man, absolutely love that. So Eva, in the event that the worst happens and a consumer suspects that their Luno account has been compromised, what steps should they follow?
So there's a couple of things that customers can do. The first thing is, if you really suspect that somebody stole money from you or that you've been scammed, please open a police case. Statistics matter in South Africa. If the police is unaware, they can't actually give it the attention it deserves. And what also is important to note is that we can help the police in their investigation by providing information to them. It's much harder for an exchange to give details about other customer accounts to a specific customer, right? Due to privacy concerns as well. So always open a police case and make sure that you instruct the police to contact the exchange. In our case, Luno or whichever other exchange you use. Now, another thing that we have specifically is that every single time you do something on your account, you'll get an email from us. So if you send out money or if you access your account, you sign into your account, you will get an email. Now, and at the bottom of that email, there is a button that you can click where it says, if you didn't authorize this or you think something's wrong on your account, click here. And that's a report function. And that report function does 2 things. The first thing, which is important, is that it places a lock on your account, right? So that means that your funds, at least for a certain period of time, will be safe. You've just frozen your account. And the second thing that happens is that you are able to submit a report to us, where you can explain what's going on and you can attach stuff like screenshots or conversations that you've had potentially with a scammer, and you can send that to us. Now that report goes straight to our specialized customer team, and they will then be able to help you further. That function also exists in the application for that matter, but the email usually is the quickest way for people to notify us of something being wrong.
Thank you so much, Eva, for joining us on What the Crypto, Head of Financial Crime and Forensics at Luno, helping us to become scam-proof in order to avoid these crypto swindlers of the world. Thank you so much, Eva.
Thank you so much, Chepo, and thank you for all the listeners, and I hope you guys have a lovely day.
Investing in cryptocurrency is not regulated in South Africa and may result in the loss of capital as the value can fluctuate. Views and opinions shared on this podcast are that of the guests and not of Luno. Any material or information on this podcast does not constitute as financial advice.
From zero to crypto with Luno, your guide to understanding cryptocurrency. Big ups to you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.